Hello and welcome. It is I, Cass. Once again. What a fucking miracle, I'm back. I probably should not have sworn. I don't really care at this point in time. My doc is still loading up in the background with all of my details and things that I forgot to remember from the last, 6 sessions. For context, we had, a month or two of downtime where we just weren't playing. So, we're all kicking it into high gear. There is so much I need to catch you all up on. Things happened, a lot of things, a lot of things. My notes are in here. I love my notes so much. So where we last left off, it was the 21st century arc. That was real fun. The 21st century arc happened, somebody died. So it's probably best to start off with, I just sort of just don't remember quite a bit. We were all just sort of talking to people and shit. And then something causes us to decide it's a good idea to go venture into the woods. So we do. And when you venture into the woods, let's just say nothing went right. So one of the characters, not any of our characters, one of the NPCs, is literally laying there with 2 arrows in her shoulder and a third that she managed to pull out because apparently she didn't pass First Aid 101. You don't pull the fucking arrow out of your shoulder. I learned that in my first aid class. That was fun. So there's an entire thing on morals and philosophy, there's an entire thing on something. And then one of my friend's characters, basically, with consent, chucks her into the nearby lake. Just chucks her body in there. She is now fish food. So we get into a fight with the guy who tried to attack her because you're not supposed to go into the woods. You're not supposed to. So he's like, now I have to, by law fight you or something, or whatever the hell he said. So we fight him. It goes well. For some reason, there's a random jar that is on his person, because we knocked him out. So I steal the jar. The jar is no longer in my possession for good reasons, but I stole the jar. And then it's revealed, well, first of all, you go break the bad news to the teammate of the girl who died. We've decided to call this arc the Collective Mental Breakdown arc for a good reason. So they're crying. The whole team's crying. Nocturne's really, really crying. That exists. Okay. I also have a random note. I probably should have done this in chronological order. But at one point in time, because me and one of my friend's characters are siblings, but they both grew up on the streets, is literally confused by pancakes. Confused by fucking pancakes. It's hilarious. I very much enjoyed watching that chaos happen. Okay, but, the fight happens, and if you guys remember the plague from the first bit, this is probably best to give you some context for this. One of the early sessions, I fucked up, and I said something really stupid. I said, off of my meds, very late at night, because I was tired. What if there was a 4th stage of the plague? The bastard did it. He threw that right back in my face today. This is 2 weeks ago. He threw it right back in my fucking face because that's how things go here. It was hilarious. For 2.2 seconds, but now I realize we're gonna have to deal with the second plague stage, which led me to a bunch of theories, but we'll get onto those theories later. It turns out he's sick again. And if you don't know what it does, it slowly drives you into madness. So, now we've got crazy bitch number 1. Mind you, there are now 3 crazy bitches. Which is somewhat abnormal for this companion. What the fuck? My accent just did something. But now we have a jar with a living human soul in it on our person. There's a sick guy, and Penance is looking for the soul. Penance is the monarch, for those who do not remember. A living human soul. So, it turns out that living human soul is none other than Prodigy Elsewhere. For if you don't remember who he is, he's the level 20 gamekeeper. who magically astral projected himself into a jar. So now that he's just stuck in a jar, just sort of vibing, and being carried around in Amnon's jacket for 2 days. Amnon is my character, for those who do not remember, or for if I didn't do it. That happens. And then there's a month of a time skip, where all is well and somewhat calm. But of course, you cannot have calm and D&D in the same sentence. So exactly a month later, at 12 in the morning on the dot, all of our characters hear a gunshot. And of course, everyone wakes up, Mira's banging her head into a wall, Amnon's trying to sleep, and Mord is downstairs gambling. They all hear it, so of course, logically, you rush to the room and try and find out what the fuck is happening. So they do. It's Mord's friend, future boyfriend, whatever. Whatever it is, he got shot. The same guy that they stole from in the first episode. So now he's just sort of bleeding on the floor, which is real fun. Because that means that there was probably a murderer loose here. It was not fun. Someone else gets shot in the basement. It's Mira's Uno buddy from, I think, the third and the fourth episode. Or second, whatever it is. His name's Seymour. He's been mentioned before. He's the level 12 whose ass we kicked. He's dead. Very, very dead. Yeah, that's no fun. And then there's the actual trial at, like, literally it's 1 a.m. by the time this is happening. Penance is downstairs. Everybody's downstairs. Everybody's panicking. Hyacinth's in the hospital. Sort of, not really vibing. He's definitely not vibing. He's unconscious. He's definitely not vibing. Everybody's awake. It's not fun. The servant just feels too wrong to say. Whatever it is. I think his name's Pierre. He's a valet. If I'm not wrong, correct me on this in the comments. BM. Whatever it is. He's sobbing. The other guy's sobbing. And the other guy, meaning his boyfriend, is sobbing. And Oliver is just sitting there. Oliver's another one of the servants for context. Is just sort of sitting there, like he's, like, not even, like, fake crying. He's just sort of sitting there. And, of course, when you have two people who are prime suspects for a murder, because we've already been suspecting people, thanks to Seymour's information, for a couple of months now. Well, weeks in-game, months IRL. And we figured out who Oliver was, and just all of the crazy crap with the whole Reaper arc thing, a couple of months ago. So, of course, all of our characters don't know this, but we know. So, it's metagame. We know metagame here. Okay. So, we hold an emergency trial in a literal dungeon. A literal dungeon. Penance is just like, why do I have the ability to do this? So, the number one way we could tell is the one dude just sort of held his hand out, like, arrest me, I know you're going to. Like, I don't care, because I know I didn't do this. I know he did. So, that was, like, the first red flag. And then, man is just sassy as hell the entire trial, like, how could you tell? How could you, blah, 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 blah. The voicing was a lot better when our DM did it. I can't do his voice all that well because I don't have a good villain voice, but he has a great villain voice. It's 10 out of 10. Great. So that happens. It's 1:30 in the morning. He's charged on, if I believe, 1 count of attempted murder and a second of first-degree premeditated murder, if I'm not incorrect. That's what it was actually said. Whatever it was, I'm not very good with words. So, Mira, one of my friend's characters, is just sort of, like, sassing him back and asking questions, and the whole thing happens. By the end of it, he ends up getting, like, patted down. They find a knife with a carnation on the handle. Carnation is the name of the villain organization. So it's pretty obvious he's guilty. And he's been disguised selfing himself the whole time. So that comes down, and he's just like, well, you've caught me. Now you have to deal with my boyfriend, who's probably going to come and try and kill you all in, like, a week. Because his boyfriend's the ruler of the other place, and is not good friends with Penance. So that happens. My next note is, penance never sleeps, do they? I'm not exactly sure what that means. Whatever it is, I'm assuming they probably didn't sleep and came back with so many eyeball rings. Just rings. Hella rings. I think everyone in this cast has rings. We break the news to the brother of Seymour that his brother's dead. More breakdowns. Everyone is just having a breakdown this week. More crying. More pancakes. The actual interrogation scene, because those are, in my opinion, some of the most fun ones, just to try and stump my DM with all of the weird questions we ask. And just because they're funny. So many invasive backstory questions. There was like 8 million of them, like, what's the relationship with your brother? Like, all of the random shit that you... Whatever it is. Our DM's been hyping this up for several months, so... We really, 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 really wanted to ask all of the invasive questions we possibly could. But that's just how we work. And one of my favorites, the dungeon joke we've been setting up for like a month. And I quote... I think this is the right one. And I quote, "You know what? On the way in, I had to question... I really like all the renovation you've done. I started questioning what kind of dungeon this is. Maybe I could set you and Bones up." Or something. It was close to that. Whatever it is. For some more context, penance has a whip proficiency. If you get that joke, you get that joke. If you don't get that joke, you shouldn't get that joke. Okay? Don't be like me, kids. One of our group members didn't get it. So it's all three of us just laughing our asses off. I feel bad for them, but like I also don't because they're xenophobic. So yeah. Apparently, we learn in this session that apparently Oliver has a kid. He just adopted a fucking kid off the street. Literally just sort of took the child in. The child's 17, but the child's still a child. And then things happen. For this next part, you're going to need a little bit of context. Victor is a member. He's a member of the... He's like, basically, he's a nobler. You might have heard me refer to him by a different name a little while ago, because that's what we did. My friend used some of his book characters. Our DM used some of his book characters in place of original characters for this, specifically. Because, I don't know why, he just didn't have time to make actual NPCs. So we made actual NPCs. His name's Victor. He's a bard. He's kind of famous for doing not scary shit, scary shit. Whatever it is, he's like a super famous bard. And he's like kind of a scary bard. So that happens. So we're in a fair. Like, you know, the kind of carnivals and things. I later learned that, not in character, but it's sort of like a placement. It was like a challenge, but it was a placement for, whatchamacallit. Basically seeing what you're best at. Like what sector to go into if you were to win the competition. Okay, so that happens. We end up spending 3 in-game hours in a maze, but in real life it was just 20 minutes of my DM saying, roll a survival check, roll a survival check, roll a survival check, to all 3 of us. That was fun. So we come out of the maze and everybody's like shell-shocked. Turns out the Victor guy ended up going batshit due to 2nd stage plague, or 4th stage plague. Because when I say stupid shit, I say stupid shit. That is certainly fun. You know, that happens. Then we try heading in for the night, but we go through a garden for some reason. I don't know why we're through the garden, but we were in the garden for some weird reason. We're in the garden, just sort of vibing. Things happen again, and not good things. So apparently, Oliver's child decides it's a perfectly good idea to try and invade. She just sort of pops up, but she's not supposed to, which means her getting out could cause us some serious problems. Like, serious, serious problems, like Jinx is gonna come invade and burn the whole place down. Jinx is the enemy ruler or whatever. He's big scary. we end up getting in a fight. We kick her ass in 10 in-game minutes, but there aren't really any good lines, like any notable quotables from this. But whatever it is, it's just like, my dad's told me I should not be out here right now, but I'm out here right now. Yeah, that happens. We end up dragging her unconscious body and throw her into the cell adjacent to Oliver so they can have a nice heart-to-heart when she wakes up. Oliver looks over there like, what the fuck? He is very concerned for why the child decided it was a good idea to actually come and fight. But it's like midnight at this point, so for like the 18th time this week, we go wake Penance up at midnight, because Penance hasn't slept normally in weeks, and that's what we do. We wake them up. They're a little grumpy, but that grumpiness gets to be very plot important, very plot relevant, quite soon. So they're just not a fan of being woken up. All that shit happens. We give them an explanation as to why there's a child that they had that is now a prisoner. We give them that whole explanation, but it's at midnight, so everyone's like, why? Things happen, and they invite us to breakfast the next morning. Now, breakfast is an important turning point here, because I still have to, I forgot the entirety of the events of last session. Last session's gonna need its own video. But they invite us to breakfast because we keep waking them up. But they seem like incredibly irritable and incredibly angry, which gets, it becomes relevant later. It becomes important very, very soon. So, they're telling us about servants gossiping and why they don't like that. And of course, like, us being us, we offer to go check it out. So we disguise ourselves, as one does. And things happen. We're talking with the servants, and apparently there's a rumor that Penance is back with the second stage of plague. Which confirms my suspicions that I've had for the last couple of weeks. One of the players and I and DMs are just like, okay, what if he pulls this on us? Like, what if he pulls this on us? I'm like, he's gonna pull this on us. Like, turns out I'm right. He does he almost pulls that on us, but that's where we leave off. Because there's, like, an entire, like, intimate conversation. Well, not really. Intimate? Is that the right word? No. Conversation with Hyacinth, who's borderline doing wheelies in his wheelchair, because he's half paralyzed now. But things happened. For now, that's about all of the updates I can really give. I think we have a session tonight, or a session real soon. So, anywho, I'm going to end this here. This is my first time with this new software, so if it doesn't go correctly, that's probably my fault. I'll see y'all later, and goodbye.